Sarah, let's talk about the patriarch.
Ooh, Rick Minter. Full of lots of good stuff. On with 105.7 The Fan. They posted it yesterday, this interview with him. Bobby, they go through things like really what he thinks is his son's, like, I mean, he didn't put it this way, but almost his superpower, right? Like his secret superpower that makes him so good. Then building off of that, he's asked about Odafe Owe and how over here it was so, and then over there he balls out. Going to talk about defensive scheme, how it is actually similar. Obviously, they all built the new scheme here in Baltimore, similar to Mike McDonald's. And then finally, some of his coaching hires. I thought that Rick took us on the inside of that. But let's start with what Jesse does best. Obviously, his dad loves his son. Nobody's going to speak more glowingly about anybody than their parents. At least that's how it should be. And here he is talking about what is his son's secret power.
Howie Roseman, a dear friend and a successful GM up there with the Eagles I worked with way back in 13, 14, tried to hire Jesse 2 or 3 years ago. And then when they came out this year to play us, the Eagles versus the Chargers, he came up to Jesse. Of course, he was very, jokingly in a way saying, man, I should have hired your butt 3 years ago. We wouldn't be in the shape we're in. And but what Howie expressed to me, I thought was a great compliment to Jesse. He says, number one, you guys play more guys on defense than any roster in the NFL. Every guy, you carry 20, 21 guys into the game, and most every guy gets playing time. He says, secondly, you're not the most talented roster, so he's found a way to maximize the strengths of every one of the players, maybe minimize or develop the weaknesses, but try to find what a guy can do and let him do it and not try to do something you can't do. Did he want to play at times a little bit more man? Sure. But we also know that we had really, really good zone corners. Maybe that's not true with the Ravens. You got some number one sitting over there at corner, and that's what he's looking forward to. So he's kind of a chameleon. I mean, and that's not a negative. That's a positive. He adjusts and he adapts and he flows with what he knows can work with the parts around him.
First of all, I had no clue that Howie Roseman tried to go out and hire Jesse Minter. Like, the Eagles have already been good enough the last couple of years. They didn't need to have Jesse Minter calling their defense to make them even better. But that is a good compliment. You go to your dad and be like, listen, he's using everybody that's allowed to be active on game day. Everybody. And you have to be, listen, obviously at a completely different level, but I coach basketball, and I lean really hard on my stars. I just do. And that probably talks about how that limits me as a coach. If you can get involved every single one of those guys, that says that you as a coach have cracked a code with every single one of those 21 or 22 guys. All 21 or 22. And we're going to get to this with Odafe Owe. He balled out without a lot of snaps because Jesse knows it. So when he used the word chameleon, yes, we played a lot of zone, but don't expect us to do that in Baltimore because my son is a chameleon. He knows ball and he knows how to evaluate players and then use their strengths at the exact right moments. He's a chameleon. That's his secret superpower.
And a connector. Which I think helped put his staff together based on what Rick Minter shared with the fan. Again, this interview, Rick just goes on and on and on. He lets it rip. He's not meant for the radio format. He's meant for the digital space where they're not up against commercial breaks and things of that nature. Listen to the way in which he refers to Jesse on the process that went into, which was a collaborative process with Eric DaCosta, putting this staff together, which, by the way, there's still a couple positions that need to be filled as well. Wide receivers coach and special teams coordinator. But here is Rick talking about his son, Jesse, in that regard.
He was very diligent about how he went about it with he and Eric. And he's trying to stay on the cutting edge. I think the first thing he probably thinks about on offense is what do we need to do to ignite Lamar, the best player on the planet, when he's right? When he's electric,
yep.
He's dynamite. And so what move can he make to enhance that? Listen to him, involve him. And I think in this case, hiring a younger guy perhaps kind of a rising star. People could question that. I mean, dude, the guy's 30 years old.
Right.
I call these guys like McVay and Shanahan and Doyle, perhaps, and maybe a Davis Webb down the road. I call them whiz kids. I mean, I'm freaking old, right? I call them whiz kids. They're like the high tech generation guys. They're coming along at a clip and a pace so much more accelerated than some of us. They see the game differently. And my vision and hope for Deck is that he is that way, that he can bring this vision of very openness and inclusiveness, putting together the run game and the pass game. And I think getting Lombardi around Deck was probably a comfort hire, somebody he's known and trusted now for years, kind of that mentorship. There'll be others. He's really high on the O-line coach from Atlanta, and we played Atlanta last year. Right, so I've seen his work up front. They're one of the best running game combos and pass protectors. He was coached by a friend of mine down at East Carolina, so again, it's another connection.
Sarah, we could have let that thing go for 5 minutes. He goes all the way through the staff to PJ Voker, to Anthony Weaver, who he's extremely high on there. Dwayne Ledford, of course, is who he's referring to, the offensive line coach and run game coordinator, who spent the last several years in Atlanta. Had a chance to catch up with Bijan Robinson on Radio Row last week. He was very complimentary of working with in the time that he spent with Dwayne. Chris Doyle is Declan's father, who he referenced there. I actually cut that out of it, but he used to be the strength and conditioning coach at Iowa. Rick and Chris have known each other for a long time. Chris is the father of Declan. So there is this interconnected web that, whether it be as a connector or a chameleon or anywhere in between, that's what's become, I think, one of Jesse's strengths throughout this process, that's allowed him to put together a staff that on paper, and it'll continue to be on the paper for the foreseeable future leading into the 26th season, is very, very intriguing, but also, to use Rick's words, is focused on the cutting edge. And that is maybe what's most exciting about where this organization is going into.
Well, and it's so interesting. I mean, he calls them whiz kids, right? But this will be Declan Doyle's first NFL play calling experience, which we all know. And sometimes it is cutting edge, but there is still some foundational stuff that a lot of people run. And it's more about, do you have a feel of what to call and when? And that's what I'm excited to see about with Declan. Does his whiz kidness translate to knowing when to call these plays? And there was those words again, Bobby: openness and inclusiveness. They're hoping that Declan will be able to put this all together with Lamar, bring Lamar into the process, listen to him, and try to implement those ideas together. And you mentioned briefly Weaver. I knew the Ravens wanted to bring Weaver back. They love Weaver. Everybody inside the organization loves Weaver. He was a finalist for the head coaching candidacy. And the Ravens are indeed lucky to have him back as a defensive coordinator, especially when he's called plays before and he's not now. What I didn't know, obviously, I knew that the Ravens wouldn't force Jesse Minter to hire anybody, but I didn't know if the Ravens were more high on Weaver than Jesse. To go on and listen to how Rick talks about Weave and how he thinks he's going to be a tremendous asset to his son, told me that it's okay, yeah, this was not even close to, I think that Jesse's excitement might be close to matching the Ravens' excitement to have Weaver back. And that kind of brings us to the scheme and the defensive scheme that they're going to be running. And Weaver's been around the scheme. So this is important. This is a key to having him be there, because Rick's going to explain that this scheme was something that was put together under the direction of John Harbaugh, but he went to Wink Martindale and the whole staff at the time, which had Mike McDonald, which had, I think had Jesse, 2018?
Yeah, it did.
Chris Hewitt, all of them, and they put together this. And again, he talks about it being cutting edge and how it's starting to be copied in so many different places. But here's how the scheme was born, and how and what the philosophy is behind it.
Well, I tell you what, schematically, the Ravens have been on the cutting edge. Just look at the Super Bowl coming up Sunday. You know, Mike McDonald, the success he had both in college at Michigan and back with John again there with the Ravens, and now out to Seattle and in the Super Bowl in his second year. It's an unbelievable achievement. Mike and Jesse are good friends. I think perhaps the Ravens could look into the crystal ball and say, well, look what Mike's done. Jesse and Mike are very clone-oriented. That can be perhaps the level of success we could have with the Ravens right away. And then where the scheme was born was when Wink got promoted to D coordinators. You guys know all these stories. And Mike got moved to linebacker. Jesse got moved into the secondary. But that's where the defensive philosophy that the Ravens still, execute under, Mike executes, Jesse executes, was born right there in 2018. You know, John said, listen, we're going to name Wink, but we want to retool the defense. Let's get more modern. Let's get more streamlined. Let's get more contemporary. Here's my vision. And then you guys go to work. And Mike took his version of it. Jesse has taken his version of it. You know, Wink ran with it for 3 or 4 years there, took it to the Giants, ironically replaced Jesse at Michigan, had a level of success. So that package and that philosophy, I really do think, is what's contemporary in pro football. Scoring on offense has come down slightly in the league. And I really believe it's because of people's willingness to play 2 high safeties. Vinny, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Play 2 high safeties, force you to run the ball, do some 2-gapping up front if you need to, and do some techniques there special to play in a light box and hang on in the run game. But you're inviting the quarterback to run the ball, trying to deny the throw, and keep roofs on top of the defense and coverage, eliminate the X plays, and you're looking at it with the Seahawks. I mean, Jesse led the league in scoring in 24 out here, his first year in the league as a coordinator, in scoring defense with the Chargers. Mike's done the same thing. He did it with the Ravens. He's doing it again. And it's just a fun thing to watch.
2 safety high. Invite the force the team to run. Also invite the quarterback to run. 2 gaps up front, and keep a roof over the top and eliminate the X wide receiver. That's kind of the scheme and philosophy. And he's saying they all kind of came up with it together. That is what Mike is running. That is what Jesse will run. They obviously have their different versions. I like how he said they're both clone oriented. They're good friends. I'm excited for this, to put together this chameleon with a scheme that we know that works, that both Jesse and Mike have shown that they're really good at. Oh my gosh. What is happening in this world? We just got a $200 super chat that just stopped me in my tracks. Stopped me mid-sentence. Holy crap.
Dinero Tranquillo. I mean, come on.
His name is Dinero? Like dinero? Like Spanish money?
This warrants, like, come on. Dinero says, I know it's off topic. Just got back from vacation. I hit Mexico in the DR. I was at a local bar in the Dominican Republic during the halftime show. It's unlike anything I've ever experienced. The visceral reaction from the people was unreal. Some were crying. Most people left after halftime. So Dinero, on a little tropical getaway, if you will, decides to bless us with a $200 super chat on some random February Tuesday. And that's a pretty cool cultural experience that he had a front row seat to.
That is really cool. Obviously talking about Bad Bunny in the halftime show.
Pretty cool.
To hear that they're crying, that it means that much to them, to be on that kind of stage. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for the $200 super chat.
I mean, have you ever felt more inclined to just stop the show in your tracks and get something up on the screen? It's been a long time. It's been a long time since we saw a red banner be thrown across the screen. So Dinero, appreciate you. We're going to leave this up here for a second.
Dinero tranquilo, peaceful money.
How about it?
That brings peace into my life. Thank you.
Unbelievable. We'll leave it up for a second while we
let's leave it up
finish up this topic, Sarah. Because,
I don't even know what I was saying. The scheme is supposed to be good. That's it. That's all.
Well, I think where it perfectly segues to is we might just keep this up on the screen the rest of the way.
Why not?
Where it perfectly segues to is, okay, hey, all this is great. All this is well and good. But we know the Ravens had a personnel issue in Baltimore this year defensively. They had a schematic issue. They had a play caller issue. They had a lot of things that went wrong for them defensively. And so the natural question's like, well, how much is that fixed overnight with a new guy at the helm? Well, there'll be new personnel as well. There'll be new draft picks. There'll be new free agents. There'll be potential cap casualties out there. But at the end of the day, how much does one new leadership change and a new coordinator and a new staff change everything? And that kind of brings us to a conversation and a debate that was had after the deadline in November, meaning the trade deadline, when Odafe Oweh was shipped out to the Chargers in exchange for Alohi Gilman. And the question then, and in some cases, the question still now, is why? Why? Not why was he traded, but why was Odafe able to walk into the Chargers and rip off a second half of the season that's about to get him paid in the next month or so? And why was not only his snap count starting to go below the wayside in Baltimore the first 6 weeks of the season, but why was he a non-factor? Rick Minter was asked essentially that by Vinny in this same interview on The Fan.
One, the guy's motivated. Obviously, he's on a contract year. We know that part of it. But he was around Khalil Mack, who is a Hall of Famer for sure. Mm-hmm. He was around Thule, a rising star in the Charger family. Yeah. Bud Dupree, an older veteran. So he was around some guys, just as he was with the Ravens, of course. But you could look at it then and say, well, it's motivation, it's contract time. We had a great young edge coach out here named Dylan Roney, does a nice job bringing out his skills. Jesse knew how to use his skills, knew what things to call that could accentuate that. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just an example of using the skill level. And the other thing, Ben, that's most important, it's not just that he had, and look at his number of production per play played. Because these other guys, Odafe didn't get a ton of reps. You know, I mean, he might have played probably, 50% at most of the plays during that 7, 8, 9 games he was with us. And then the production, I mean, that last game alone against the would-be New England Patriots Super Bowl team, he had 3 sacks. Yeah. And so he's got the skill level. I'm not sitting here trying to court him back. Well, maybe, but no. But that's an example, though, of what you're saying. How can a guy be so-so at one place and accentuate greatness at the other place? And I do think it's a credit to Jesse and the staff, and then, of course, Odafe himself. He was motivated. I guess when you get traded, there might be a little kick in the pants to say, hey, somebody didn't want me. I'm going to prove. I thought that was a trade that was good for both teams. Correct. I love Alohi Gilman, tremendous young man. I mean, as you guys have already seen in a short time yourselves. And Odafe's a good man. I mean, he is a great player. He gets up and talks in front of the team every now and then. He's a man of few words, but very powerful words. He's a great competitor, played at Penn State. But that's an example of using a guy's skills, both schematically within stunts and rushes and those types of things, and just freeing a guy up. I mean, you know, once he got there, I was telling the D-line guys, I said, listen, let's just let this guy free rush and let the other guys around him clean it up. You know, you kind of call those cover stunts and things like that, you know, as long as you're together. Can't have him doing it independently, but as long as you're working together, you can do that. But he was fun to be around for the short amount of time we had him.
Is he courting Odafe Oweh back to Baltimore?
Stop. Do you know how much pass rushers make?
I know.
In their second contract?
He's going to get paid.
It'd be nice to have him back on his rookie. If we could have paired Odafe with Jesse on his rookie deal, this would be a different conversation. But like to pay this man what he's going to get paid because he's a pass rusher, and then you know he showed what he can do in a non-Zach Orr defense, you know. But I am glad that Rick at least acknowledged that he actually made me laugh. He's like, well, he first says, well, he was around some guys, and I do think Odafe also had success 2 years ago when Nnamdi Madubuike was still healthy. So, but it was funny. He's like, yeah, he was around some guys. just like he was with the Ravens. No, he was not around guys last year. There were no other guys. Like Mike Green was an up and comer, but there were not guys that he was around. I do think that helps. But he just talked about it, how they schemed him open and try to like get him free, all that kind of stuff. All that matters. All of that matters. So it's a compliment to many people, but of course, Jesse and the guys he was around and Odafe himself.
Odafe is going to get paid. Isaiah is going to get paid.
Yeah.
This is what happens. Some of it's projection, and others like Odafe, Sarah, is just straight up concrete evidence, as he stated second half of the season once he got that new change of scenery in Los Angeles. So, look, great interview. Want to, encourage you guys to go check it out. That's on the 105.7 The Fan YouTube channel. And Sarah, Rick wanted to be clear. I don't want to be my son's shadow. I don't want to be someone that, is looked at as the coach's father. I want to be one of the guys. I want to be a contributing factor to this team. And just like he was the last couple of years with Jim Harbaugh and his son Jesse in Los Angeles, it sure looks like that's going to be the case coming up in 2026 and beyond. So if nothing else, really cool story. Good to kind of get a feel for the Minter family, and a lot of great takeaways there in terms of what the Ravens are getting, not only in Jesse at the helm, but the connector that he's become in recent weeks as his staff has really started to take shape ahead of 2026.